is brought to you by Adorama Pics and McKay Photography Academy.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 58.
Welcome everyone back to another Photo Mishmash. Titled is The Future of Photography. It's a little bit of a grand title, but we're going to touch on that some more. I think Christina is starting to see the light. This is that weekly show where we take all of the photo news, discussions, rumors, tiny bits of gear review, mash them all up into a big ball and deliver it to you live. Although some of you don't watch live. That's fine. Thank you to those who are joining us live and making the chat room an exciting place. I'm Toby, educator and photographer.
And I'm Christina. I am a wedding photographer, and I do a little bit of photography teaching as well.
That's right, you do. And we'll be doing some more this year.
Yes, that's right.
And we have some good educational videos coming up. We've been doing a lot of review stuff lately, which is fun. It's fun to have hands on new gear, but we're going to be doing some more teaching, and we're excited by that.
Yes.
Okay.
So first things first.
Yes.
We had an Instagram challenge last week, and we should announce a winner now.
We should announce a winner. So this is the weekly Instagram challenge. Fun, fame, that's all you win. And this week was Instagram cliches, which I let you all decide kind of what you wanted to do with that. I did give some suggestions, the selfies, the food, the lone tree, and I was literally LOLing, as they say, laughing out loud. I don't know why I just said it again. While I was looking through these, they were all fun, and we talked about it a little bit, and I don't have it open, so you can give me a second, but this week the winner was Tony's selfie pick.
Tony who?
Tony Lawrence. Tony Lawrence's selfie pick, where he held up a smartphone in front of him that has a little bit more pictures. But I tell you what, I'm going to put up a post again this week like I did last week and just highlight a couple of honorable mentions. You can switch over to me now if you want, because I got Tony's on here. I love it. It's good. There were a couple others that were really close. I was like, which one should I pick? Again, it's just a fun thing that we're doing. So thank you everybody who's been participating and making this fun. Once a week, I'll announce, once a week. It's a week-long challenge, and we're now ready to start week 3.
That's right.
Minimalism. I want to see your best minimalism photos. Hashtag will be PRTV_minimal, and keep it to a minimum, folks.
And if you want to follow us on Instagram, our usernames are down below.
That's right. Not required for these contests, but hey, it's fun, and it's just another good way. I both share images that I take and I think are fun, but I also share news bits and things of that sort. And with Facebook's heavy filtering, that might be another place where you would have otherwise missed a deal or a tip or some tidbit of news.
But just a reminder, the Instagram challenge hashtag for week 3 is PRTV_minimal. And if you would like to follow along with the show notes, they are on our homepage, photorec.tv.
That's right.
So,
and they're down below too. I pasted them
below.
down there below as well. So I thought this was, we mish and mash everything together. Mention real quick that Instagram's layout app, that's that collage making app, is now available for Android as well. And I tried it out. It's slick. Would it ever be something you would use, Christina?
I don't think so, just because I like to keep my Instagram account pretty simple.
Mm-hmm. I knew you were going to say that. Yep. But I have to say it's nice. It's very easy to create kind of collages. And I'll tell you, when I use it, oftentimes traveling, when I have a couple of images, none of them are strong enough to stand on their own. But together they might tell a little bit more of a story. And so it's a fun way to combine images a little bit. And the drag and drop for the interface is very smart and very nice. So I like it.
Yep.
Yes, there is a chat room, and you should pay less attention to them like I try to, although I watch what they're saying. But
So,
it's hard to do both.
In case you missed it this past week, well, first I want to talk about the thing that I was most excited about.
What were you most excited about this week,
The
Christina?
T6s review that we released.
Oh.
We worked very hard on that.
We did, and really did that. The T6s review actually has come out since last, hasn't it?
No, we were putting it together last time.
When I went out. Oh, you're right.
Friday.
You're right. So T6s review, I think most of you have watched it. If you haven't, go take a moment to watch it. We packed that full of content, and it's a review style that we'd like to make more of in the future. But with that said, my ultra wide angle review will be out in a few days. Most of that was recorded before we really worked on this new style, so it's going to be a little bit of the older style too. Not that there was anything wrong with that. You all like to see me standing here talking and talking and talking, don't you? Right? Yes. So I don't have much more to say about the T6s other than I've been shooting more with it, and something as simple as having that rear dial for full manual control really makes this a fun camera to use. When the T6s and the 70D are sitting next to each other on the table, it's very easy to pick one or the other up and think you're holding the other one. They are very similar in size and shape. 70D is a little bit bigger. You can feel that as far as the grip extends just a little bit higher. But image quality, for videos, I do see a difference, a noticeable difference between the T5i and the T6s. 70D and T6s, they seem to be neck and neck across all of the different ISOs, different conditions. Sometimes the T6s might look a little bit better, but it is a very minor difference. But it's a nice upgrade, and yeah, I think that's it. I have more to say about the camera though, and I'll be doing a careful side by side. A lot of people are trying to figure out T6s or 70D, so I'll be coming out with a video that really goes in depth. But on the blog is a point-by-point post about what are the benefits of the 70D versus the T6s, and there are certainly benefits of the 70D. It is, in general, a better all-around camera, but it's a bigger, heavier camera that you'll be carrying around, so that might be a drawback for some people.
You should watch the video though, because we really outline those things.
I do outline those things in the video as well. But there are more points, more differences. Like I didn't mention that you can microfocus adjust or you can make microfocus adjustments in the 70D, and you don't have that option in the T6s. So.
Yep.
Also, in case you missed it, Fuji has announced the X-T10.
So actually, before you go on, I should say that this is still part of, in case you missed it, though it's a little bit of news, but the difference between typical news things and this is that you can find more information about this on the website.
Right.
So on photorec.tv, and I can put that on, if I can find it.
So
right there.
Yes, I blogged about both of these two announcements this week, so that's why it falls into the "in case you missed it" category. The X-T10, and basically you can think of it as a little brother to the X-T1, which we reviewed here, and we enjoyed. I had some issues with its very manual focus control. You might be thinking that's ironic, saying I'm talking about this rear dial here, but no, because the XT has. You basically physically set your shutter speed and your aperture on the lenses. I felt like it was a little bit of a slower camera to use. Output is just gorgeous. The size is wonderful. And the general user friendliness of that camera is quite good because you can see the dials and set them. In the follow-up interview with Nathan, who has used one, who shot a wedding with one, as we mentioned last week on the show, it's a very nice camera. The X-T1 looks to take all of that, packs it in a smaller body with really not much sacrifice, and brings it down into this price point where it's in here with all of these DSLRs. It's got this new upgraded autofocusing system that the X-T1 is getting as well with this firmware update that's coming in a few weeks. Well,
we were having this discussion during breakfast this morning, right? Like, which is a good travel camera, or which light. What was the question that you asked me?
Well, I said for travel photography, does low light quality really matter to you.
Right. And, you know, I think when we talk about low light quality in general, and comparing cameras across the board, you know, Canon cameras, Rebels, 70D, 7D, Fuji, Nikon, Panasonic, Sony, all of them. If we really compare them side by side and we look at the pixels and compare the low end to the higher end models, the difference in low light performance in the grand scheme of things is incredibly minimal. Like if you compare it against something like the 1DX, the Canon 1DX.
Or the Sony A7S.
It's going to be like probably a pretty good difference, right?
Yeah.
But that's comparing it to a camera that you can shoot at 12,800 ISO and get very little, if any, noise and completely usable pictures. So you're comparing it to a camera that performs exceptionally well, that has a gigantic body, and you're saying, well, that one, you know, that is good, and this is not as good. But it's still really good. So I think low light performance is somewhat important.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's not like you say that, oh, you can't shoot past 800 ISO with these cameras, or even 1600 ISO.
Right.
So
and what you're saying this morning is for most of travel photography, it's about capturing those moments. And if some
Right.
of those moments may be a little bit grainier, that's
Yeah.
part of the moment.
yeah. And here's a tip. Well, this is personal to me,
Give us a
but
personal tip.
like personal aesthetic preferences. But when you're shooting in low light, you don't only have to worry about noise, but you also have to worry about the color. And typically when you're shooting in low light, if you're shooting people in low light, you're going to be, you know, in a restaurant, in a store, somewhere where there's incandescent light, tungsten light, and you're not really, I mean, I think the noise issue is going to be a much smaller issue than the issue of having a really yellow image that you can't really correct for with white balance. So I guess what I'm getting to is that for me, I find that when I'm in that situation, I just end up shooting them and know that I'm going to convert them in black and white to black and white most likely. And in that case, the noise actually works in my favor because I think black and white pictures look more beautiful when they have noise. They just look richer.
Or grain.
And
then do you
noise
switch over
or
and
grain.
call it grain?
Well, yeah. I mean, noise is sort of grain. That's what it is.
Right.
I mean, it's not. It isn't the exact
Right.
same thing, but
Its
it looks
appearance-
like grain.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
So
Well, that was a little bit of a tangent.
that was.
I'm usually the one that takes us off on tangents.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing the load. Yes, I agree. And we're going to come back a little bit and not this week. I mentioned travel cameras last week or the week before. I've got a big group of stuff coming from B&H that I'll be talking about soon, trying to figure out travel cameras. But I'll give you a hint. I'm leaning personally towards a Micro Four Thirds, and we're going to talk about this in the G7 because of those ridiculously small lenses that just keep the whole package down. We'll talk more about it in a second. If you could switch over to me for a sec, because I do just want to show this XT10 and briefly go through some of the things that we talked about here. It's got that same gorgeous sensor, same processor. It is a slightly smaller viewfinder, but you've got full HD, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got that autofocusing system, which right now is actually going to be better than the XT1 until the XT1 gets its upgrade. And one of the ways it saves, though, is it's offered with a slightly cheaper kit lens. But you can buy it with the 18 to 55, and of course you can put it together with a very nice 18 to 135 kit. I'm also working on videos about the kits. You're giving up weather sealing. So I'd say the big things are weather sealing and that slightly smaller viewfinder. But at this price point, this is a sweet package with respect to me. So that's nice. It's great to see at this $7.99 to $8.99 price, we've just got more and more and more and more options, and that's a good thing. I think the prediction from somebody who's making a lot of mirrorless cameras is that we're going to see mirrorless surpass DSLR sales in the 2018-2019 area. I think for the US, we're going to be a little bit lagging behind that us Americans hold on to, we walk into Target, we walk into Walmart, and they just don't sell mirrorless cameras. It is the Nikon entry level, the Canon entry level after the points and shoots. It's rare to find any of these nice mirrorless cameras in there. There are some starting to show up, but not so many. And that's where a lot of cameras are sold. And people have them, and you're at office, and you say, I'm thinking about getting a better camera than my point and shoot or my cell phone. And your friend says, oh, I got a DSLR, that's what you should get. So it's going to take a while for that mindset to go on, to move on.
So next up, another announcement, which you can also find on photorec.tv, Panasonic GX7.
Oh, no, I might have said GX7. Actually, it's not the GX7, it's the G7.
Oh, the G7.
Right. This comes back to my naming conventions where we got all of the stuff that's so close it's ridiculous and confusing.
Yeah.
We should go to things like Millennium Falcon and, well, maybe not. Okay. So the G7 specs, you could think of this camera as kind of a little brother to the GH4. It's got that 16 megapixel micro four thirds in there, but the real interesting news about this that we're going to come back and touch on in our future of photography is its new 4K photo modes. So we'll be back to talk about this again. Another nice camera. And back to Christina's point of travel camera doesn't need for now. This is certainly a personal opinion, but and I agree with this. I don't need amazing low light quality in my travel camera. And as Christina said, when we talk about these micro four thirds being not as good as something like the A7S or even the A7, it's still fantastic, and it's way better than what we had a couple of years ago, and people were getting out and making gorgeous pictures with those. Those cameras are not obsolete.
Right.
You can still make gorgeous pictures with them, so
Yeah.
of course you can make gorgeous pictures with these new cameras today.
Yeah.
So just go make pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the bottom line. So
That's what the whole show's about.
that was, in case you missed it. And speaking of travel, though,
Yes.
we are doing some traveling later this year with McKay Photography Academy, and we haven't really decided which cameras we're going to bring.
No, I mean, it's been very much in my mind as I
But when
think
we were
about
in
this.
Italy with them, we brought the Sony, right? The Sony A6000?
A5100.
A5100. And that was a really awesome camera. And it was micro four thirds?
No, it's an APS-C sensor in there.
APS-C,
Yep.
okay. And it was awesome. And I think, we had...
Good review.
Well, we had our DSLRs with us, but most of what we used was that little camera, and we were able to use it to do vlogs too, which was really nice.
That's right.
It was very portable. Yeah, and so if you're interested in traveling and taking awesome pictures during your travels, we encourage you to check out mckaylive.com. They put together these really awesome trips around the world where you can go and learn about the culture and meet other like-minded people and come away with incredible images. We went to Italy last year with them.
Yep.
We're going to Greece. You are going to Iceland. We're going to New Zealand with them. We're very excited about those things. They still have 2 spots in Greece, for Greece. They have 2 spots for New Zealand. And I believe they have 1 spot left for Tanzania.
Right. And that Tanzania trip, we've talked about it other weeks, amazing. The pictures that I saw from those folks on that trip are simply amazing. They hit every big animal you think of when you think of Africa. And also got to meet some amazing people in the Maori. No, that's New Zealand. I'm drawing a blank. They begin with
What?
an M. The people, the culture of the people that live in the area of the Serengeti where they go.
Oh,
Or
I'm not sure
Tanzania.
where.
Okay, Tanzania, sorry. But the point is, just you get to have an amazing experience, make awesome photos, and learn and get feedback while you're doing it. And it's just an amazing trip. One of the things that we've talked about is as beginner photographers, or even, when you start to feel fairly seasoned, there is this feeling like, oh, I might not be good enough, or I might not know enough to go on a trip like this, there are people of all abilities, and everybody is 100% welcome. And it's just great. The not only the other participants on the trip, but of course the teachers and us.
I miss them.
Yeah, it's just fun. Everybody has fun together. Goes out to eat together, talks about life, talks about cameras, and talks about life a little bit more.
We have heart-to-hearts.
Really?
Kind of.
Okay. No, we did. We actually have had some hearts-to-hearts and talk about things. And we do. We miss those folks, and we're looking forward to traveling with them more in the future. And we'd like you to come along. So take a look at that link right down below. Explore some of those trip offerings. And if one of those trips is not something you can schedule in the near future, they also have classes. And you might want to take a look at that and just tell them that Toby and Christina sent you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to news, guys. The first thing we have lined up.
The first thing is a very serious article that I really have been wanting to discuss for some time now.
It sounds to me like you're being sarcastic.
Nikon made a dog. Nikon made a dog.
They made a dog, everybody.
Nikon made a camera that lets dogs take photos of things they like. I can't decide whether we should start the news section with fun stories like this or should end it, because this is a very lighthearted story. It is basically a camera that's stuck in here, and it's attached. Somehow it has a heart rate sensor, so it can detect the dog's heart rate.
Huh.
And then it's triggered by a faster heart rate. I guess the dog gets excited, and that triggers some pictures. So, well, first we've talked about the wedding dog the other day that captured pictures of its owner's proposal, and now we have this. What is when the dog's heart rate spikes, the camera snaps. What I'm curious about is what gets dogs excited. Here's what
everything.
Yeah, everything. Food, other dogs' butts,
Everything.
trees that smell like other dogs' pee,
Everything.
squirrels.
Everything.
So what kind of pictures are we gonna get? I guess you got the cute one where the owner comes home or the kid gets off the bus and the dog is psyched and that snaps a picture. But otherwise, I'm imagining blurry stuff as the dog's going after a squirrel, the bowl of food as the dog is excited because here comes the food, bacon, squirrels,
Everything.
everything. That's not true. Some dogs don't get excited. Now, let's take our cats as an example, because we like to work our cats into the show.
Who
as
get
often as
excited about
possible.
nothing
And
except food.
what would cause them? Liam gets really excited by the brush. He loves
does
to be
love
brushed. So I think you would see pictures of me holding the brush up, and him like running towards me in his fat little cat body.
You could pretend that like he's just coming for you, like just to say hi.
And hide the
and
brush,
be like,
right? Bean, what would get Bean excited?
food. Like after he's really hungry, because he doesn't even really get that excited about food.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about our cats.
No, let's talk about 70D deal. So as a lot of people are starting to look at the T6s and say, no, I'm better off if I step up to the 70D, people are starting to look for deals. Somebody wrote me today and said, Costco's got this great bundle. I feel like this happens about every 6 months. Costco does have a bundle, 70D, 18 to 55, 55 to 250, STM, SD card, little bag. I think that's it in this bundle. $11.99. B&H can beat that. $11.98. And you get a spare battery. It's really nice to start off. I recommend everybody, whatever camera you buy, even one with amazing battery life, you always get at least one extra battery for it. So it's really nice to have that come free. And for most of you, if you live outside New York, you don't pay sales tax. So that B&H deal is better. There's a link to it right down below. I might do a little separate video. That often brings in a lot of people trying to figure out deals, and they find that video. So might do that.
Yeah. So kind of onto the bummer news.
The bummer news.
Yep. So in Italy, there was a bike race, and
There's a bike race still going on.
Oh, there's a bike race
right.
still going. But one of the
tour of Italy.
The tour of Italy. And one of the writers, the participants, he crashed because of a photographer's lens that was too long. Which is a bummer.
I'm not going to click on this link. If you want to go look at it, you can take a look at it.
I didn't see anything very graphic.
Okay. There, if you look, the rider who made the contact with the lens that was sticking over the barrier from this careless spectator severely broke his arm. I mean, backwards broke.
Let's go into more detail.
Okay, that's all. You can, now these guys, they crash without people sticking lenses in their way. But to crash because of a careless spectator, first off, what are you getting with a lens that long right up against the barrier?
Right, yeah. There's
I guess you
something
could
you're
get
getting.
if you could shoot further down the road. But people, just be careful. One, don't put yourself in harm's way for shooting events. And two, make sure you're not affecting those around you with your shooting.
Yeah.
That's all.
Be self-aware.
That's right.
And
be
use caution. And common sense.
It can be tricky with these longer lenses sometimes. But again, be self-aware and don't cause problems.
So there's a Petapixel article next.
Yes.
So it sounds like Samsung asked somebody,
On
a
Instagram.
photographer
Yep.
on Instagram, if that person could give them unlimited rights to their photo to be used to show what the product looks like, I guess. It sounds like it was for internal reasons, right?
Well, that was the thing. They said, hey, this picture's awesome. We'd love to share it. Reply yes and let us share it. Which, oh yeah, sure, share out my picture. That sounds fine. But they did link by saying yes, you're going to agree to our terms of service. What do those terms of service say? They say that you represent and warrant that you own the image. That's good. That there are no other entities with ownership claims, yada, yada, yada. And you grant Samsung Electronics a non-exclusive, royalty-free, irrevocable, perpetuable, transferable license to use the image for any purpose, including without limitation for advertising our products or to reproduce in any form, but not limited to video, basically however we want. And we don't have to give you credit. We'll make commercially reasonable efforts to give you credit, but we don't have to.
Yeah. So what did this person say?
I believe they said no.
Yeah. And now it's on Petapixel. And now you're embarrassed, Samsung.
Well, I don't think they are. I think
Well,
they're
they should be.
Well, this
What?
is...
What?
Well,
The nerve.
Tell us why, the nerve. Why?
Because this is a company with a huge amount of resources, specifically money, a lot of money, and they're asking this one photographer to just give them something for free that they clearly see value in.
Preach it, girl. Yeah.
That's not fair.
No,
And it's silly.
it is. So you just be careful about that. There is this excitement. I've had it when somebody contacts me and says, can we use your image?
We will give you credit.
Right. Well, you have that all the time as a wedding photographer.
Right.
Wanna
Which
talk
is
a
a
little bit
little bit
about that?
different. Well, so I give pictures to vendors for them to use without a watermark, which is my choice, actually. And actually, I do use a tiny watermark now, but very, very tiny one. But yeah, so I let them use it for free, which I realize, it's sort of free advertising for them. But at the same time, you're kind of hoping that your name will get out there, they'll put in a good word for you, et cetera, et cetera. So, which doesn't always happen, but then again, I feel like you lose more out of saying no to that. Plus, they're small businesses like me, so they don't have a ton of resources. So it's a little bit different. Plus,
Right.
I already made money off of those pictures because a couple paid me to shoot them. So
Right.
it seems a little bit crummy to be like, okay, well, pay me a licensing fee,
Right.
even though I've already.
But you get clear value out of that in return.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And in sharing with a giant company like Samsung, who is going to take this image completely out of context, your value in return is probably going to be nothing. Now, on the other hand, I had the Vermont State Parks, this is years ago, contact me and say, we love your beaver picture, can we use it? And I think they said, I'll send you a mug. That's where I got my I Love Vermont mug.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, Sure. So I was psyched. You know, I thought that was fair, and Vermont State Parks doesn't feel like a giant company that is super rich. So I was okay with making that share. And they did say that anywhere it would be used, I would get credit. Again, but remember, you know, and they did. I remember them. They shared it on Facebook. They might have shared it at least one other place in some of their brochures or something. The value you get in return for these general shares is very small. I'm watching and paying attention when I share out information, like how many people click through, and the number is very small. It's certainly bigger with a company like Samsung, and they said, hey, you know, this person took that picture. You probably pick up some followers, but it is not nearly as many as you think you might. So just keep that in mind. And Roy, actually, this happened to Roy in the chat room. This happened to him. But I think, Roy, you managed to make a deal and got some spices in return. So there are ways to barter. And certainly if you're a beginner photographer and another small company is not able to afford your prices, then you can barter. I've worked for cheese before. Roy's worked for spices. We could get together and we could make a meal. But this also comes back to that last week of going to the grocery store. What was that? The satirical article about paying for things with credit. What was that? Exposure.
Oh, right.
Being able to pay for things by exposure. Right.
Right.
Comes back to that.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
can't do that.
So.
All right. So.
Let's talk about another big company.
Do it. Google.
Google is probably splitting. Well, we've kind of heard this rumor for a while, but they seem to be getting close to splitting photos away from Google+. And in some ways, I think you can already say it's split. You can go to Google, but you know, it's part of the URL. I think that's exciting. They have a lot of power. They've got a lot of space. I think they see some competition from Flickr, and it'll be nice to see them up their game. So we might hear about this at Google I/O, which is actually happening next week. I mentioned this a few weeks ago, the Google Stories. I love that feature. Google Photos is nice. I've been transitioning all of my personal family pictures from SmugMug over to Google Photos because image recognition and keyword searching, both of those things working together. There are some images that maybe I forgot to tag tree, but it's smart enough to find the trees even if I didn't tag them. Usually. It's not perfect, but I expect it will get better, and so
is this going to be social? Is there any word about whether or not this is going to be social, or is it going to be... Because I feel like Google hasn't really been very good about its social...
No, remember Buzz?
Networks.
And Google Plus right now.
Well,
let me ask you this. Do you consider Flickr social?
Yes, I do. Very much so.
Then I would say that you may consider what this next model of Google Photos looks like social as well. But I do not believe that will be the emphasis. It will be on your photos and sharing your photos as much as that's social. There won't be this kind of like Facebook-esque or Google Plus-like effect.
Yep. So next up... so Canon, there's word that the Canon 5D Mark IV is being tested. So we're back to that rumor mill.
Right. We're in May. And this is a mid-level rumor that some select photographers have their hands on a 5D Mark IV prototype or prototypes, and that we will still see an announcement in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
What is the fourth quarter? December, November, October. So.
It's a long time.
Yeah. September.
Yeah.
No. It's got October, November, December.
Those
3 months are fourth quarter.
I guess I should probably open this article, but is there anything else other than like, it's in the wild, as they say?
Well, maybe the updated Digic processor, but that's really the only other rumors we have at this time. I'm going to say it again, because I like to say it and torture people who are holding out hope. There will not be 4K in this camera. Somebody commented and said, where's 4K in this? And Canon is not going to give us that. But I feel like, I just said that somebody commented and I smiled kind of like well, they're silly for doing that, but look at what we're getting from the Panasonic. A $799 camera, $799 with 4K video in it. But Canon is not going to give us that, and these Rebels maybe the T8i, T8i. That doesn't sound good. I hope they change the name.
Yeah. Yeah.
T8i.
We've been hoping that since the T1i came out. Or the
Reminds me of
T1.
the joke. Why was...
This is going to be really bad.
I can't remember it.
Yeah, good. That's probably for the best.
Why is 10 scared of 7? Is that the joke? Because 7, 8, 9. I had to tell it.
Okay. See, now I'm lost. Oh, so there is a firmware issue with the 7D Mark II. So is this the latest firmware? Have you installed it?
I have not installed it because I'm honestly not using my 7D Mark II a ton, but it is supposed to fix a focusing issue with the 7200 f2.8 IS2, which we have, and I do use on the 7D Mark II at times. Actually, was using a couple weeks ago, or actually last week. So I should update, but now I'm going to hold off because there are some reports. It doesn't sound ridiculously widespread, but certainly more than a couple people are commenting on a Fred and Miranda forum that they're having lockups or freezing of their camera after they've applied this firmware. So I just think it's a little ironic. We've talked about firmware updates before. We've got Samsung with their NX1 series pumping out amazing updates that really change what that camera is capable of. We have the XT1 that we just mentioned getting a firmware version 4 update, really making some significant improvements since that camera came out in its focusing capability, its low light focusing, a lot of things. And then we've got Canon, where we talk about most of their firmware updates, with a few exceptions, are to fix phenomena. And in this case, we got a firmware update that is making the camera not so happy. Come on, Canon. Give us a little bit more. Give us a little bit more. Phenomena.
I feel like that's the overall, that's like the theme with Canon. Just give us what we want, Canon. Stop holding back already.
If there's no Canon guys out there watching this, I mean like actual people working for Canon high up. If they were, they'd be like, look at those lenses you got all over your office. Don't you love those? And yes, we do love those. But give us a little bit more.
Okay, so... Speaking of not Canon.
Not Canon.
The D810. Is this, wait, so there's a new D810 or D800 or is it a brand new camera?
This is the D810a. This has been modified for astrophotography. Let's talk about this just for a moment. What this allows is they basically tweak the sensor so that you get much more of the red wavelengths that you get from things like the nebula up in outer space. And it just makes the camera more suited for astrophotography. If you're just taking pictures of stars, something like this doesn't really make a big difference with that modified sensor, but this is the first time Nikon's done it. Canon's done it for a while. They did it back on the 20D, they did it on the 60D, but Nikon's done it now with this D810a. And besides the modified filter, I think this is pretty neat, you've got the ability to set exposures up to 15 minutes long in camera. So typically, you've got your bulb, you've got your shutter, in manual mode, usually the maximum shutter speed you can set is 30 seconds in most cameras that I know of. Then, if you want to go longer, you switch to bulb mode and you need some way to trigger the camera remotely. Lots of different ways to do that for a longer period of time. One of the reasons I love Magic Lantern in my 5D Mark III is because in bulb mode, I can do that with a timer. I can say 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 15-minute exposures. Well, now Nikon's building this into their camera. That, plus the fact that you already have an intervalometer built into these cameras, sets up for some really nice star trail photography. And again, the modified sensor doesn't really help with stars much. It'll help a little, but not a ton. But just a nice all-around camera. It's going to come in at $3,800. Regular D810 now is just under $3,000. It's a lot of camera for. It's a very nice camera. It's big. It's heavy. But if you want to really get out there and shoot some stars and some star trails and some nebula, like the Crab Eye Nebula, I just made that one up. I don't know if that's one of them or not.
So tell me about like people that would buy this camera, because it's almost $4,000, and I get that it's sort of tailored towards astrophotographers.
Mm-hmm.
And the features that it's included, I mean, it's not like, okay, so the ISO is pretty high. I'm kind of going over all these things that you
The
already went over.
ISO is the same as the D810. They haven't made any changes there, except they've upped the lower limit, because why would you ever shoot at ISO 100 in these ridiculous low light situations?
So why would you buy that? Why not like buy the D8?
Because you want to be able to take pictures of amazing nebula in the sky. Things that we can't really see with our naked eye, but long exposures will pull out. Yeah.
Couldn't you do that? So are you saying that because of the 15-minute?
No, because of the
Ability
modified filter. So a lot of these nebulas are emitting, much of their color is in this red wavelength that our eyes don't really see and cameras don't really pick up, because cameras are designed to reproduce what we see. But by removing or modifying this filter, it allows more of that red in, and you get more beautiful nebula.
Got it. Okay.
More beautiful nebula. That's another show title.
So now going back to Fuji.
Mm-hmm. Scott put these in the rundown because Scott's got a Fuji now, so he's all over this stuff.
I'm jealous, Scott.
But this is, one of Fuji's strengths, I just talked about the X-T10, is that they have a nice selection of lenses. Really nice. Some really fast lenses. You remember we used the 56 f1.2. It's a fantastic lens she's on. So we've got some new lenses coming. A 35mm f2, very nice focal length on a crop sensor. That's weather sealed. 120mm f2.8 with image stabilization. That's probably a macro. And a 100-400 with image stabilization. Not sure what the aperture is going to be of that yet, but that's exciting. We've got the X-T10, of course, getting that firmware update. The X-T10 is going to be available June 18th, along with a 90mm weather sealed lens, and that version 4 of the firmware should be coming around mid-June as well. So I think that Fuji is really saying, here we are, and we've got great lenses, so suck it, Canon, and we've got great cameras, and we're ready to go.
And last in our news.
Oh yeah. If you switch over to me, I got it.
Yeah. So they're actually really pretty pinhole cameras created by this company called Ondu. Yes, I am getting there.
So everybody saw that. Okay.
Yes, everyone did. Good job. So yeah, do you want to tell us more about it?
Oh, you started talking. Keep on talking.
Well, they're pretty, and they take. So you can load a color film, you can load black and white film, and it looks like they have different sizes, which means I am assuming that you can load different sizes of film. Is that correct?
Yes.
Which is pretty neat.
That's right.
That's very cool.
$60 will get you the 135 panoramic model, but as Christina said, they're beautiful. I love their Kickstarter page too, because they make good uses of gifts. Right here we've got they've got magnets, so the whole thing pops together so nicely with these magnets. They're really well designed. I'm very tempted. Are
you now?
I am.
Because you've never really, not for many, many years.
Look how pretty it is.
It's very pretty.
When it's not being used, it's a beautiful piece of artwork. And then to take these pictures, what I love, what they're showing here is the framing guidelines. I love this. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and give this idea out. Will somebody do this? They need to make this for GoPros. So when you don't have the LCD or you don't have the Wi-Fi, you know what the 1080 super wide looks like. They've got these nice little lines that show you that. Why don't they do that, GoPro? I had an idea. Make a little target reticle indicator up top that lets you know what's in view. Okay? So you've got this cool little shutter. But Christina, let me ask you this. We could switch back over to us. How would you calculate exposure? What would you do? How would you know how long to keep the shutter open?
Well, you would kind of have to guess, wouldn't you? Is there some way to calculate it on there? Or
they said that this is an update. They've already done this before. So let's do a quick disclaimer. Anytime you back anything on Kickstarter, you are basically giving somebody money with no guarantee of anything in return. And we're starting to see that with people off Kickstarter as well, like that Lily drone that we talked a little bit about last week. Right now, that's kind of vaporware. So again, you get benefit, but you also take a risk. So they've done this already, which is a good sign. That usually helps, although not always. And they said that they have fixed they've better calculated the actual pinhole size. But then I don't know. Maybe I'm showing some ignorance here, but I don't know exactly how you would decide how long to keep that open.
You just do it.
You just do it.
Yeah, you just experiment.
I'll say based on where's one of the sample pictures they've got somewhere in here. I like his mom makes little. Oh, here it is. This sample picture leads me to believe that it can be a pretty short exposure, because we've got people being held up by other people's feet. Now, they didn't do that for 15 minutes.
Right. And is that how long the exposure was?
Oh.
It was 15 minutes?
No.
Oh,
I'm saying they didn't. When I think of pinhole camera, I think of long exposures.
I see.
But clearly, it doesn't have to be.
No. Well, didn't you ever make a pinhole camera in photography class in high school? Or
I didn't take photography class in high school.
didn't you? Okay, so I think I'm thinking of the photography school that I volunteer at or have volunteered at, and they have the students make pinhole cameras, and you just you uncover it and then you cover it back up.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, depending on the size of the opening.
Right. Yep.
But
Oh.
all right. Well, that's enough news. And now speaking of, I guess, film
and prints.
and prints.
That's right. If you get a pinhole camera and you figure out the correct exposure, what should you do with the images you're making?
Hello, Liam.
You should get prints of them. And Liam agrees. He loves seeing prints of himself around this house. But seriously, we talk about this. We have all of these amazing futuristic ways to make prints. For instance, we're going to talk a little bit about this in the future of photography. I just ordered a series of prints from Adorama Pics that were made from still shots taken from video. Is that the best way to say that? Or they are images pulled out of a video file. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second, and that's a little bit of that future of photography discussion, because this new G7 really gives you some ways to do that. And it doesn't matter how you create your pictures. It doesn't matter if it's old school or new school. I still think the best way to display your work, both for your own benefit and for people around you, is these tangible prints. They look gorgeous. The prints I have up around the house, the things that I've made, or of family members, pictures that I've taken, they're inspiring. They help me say, you know what, I want to go to this place again, or I want to go to some place I've never been and make a print like that. And so those things are really exciting. It's a wonderful way to decorate your house. And it's just so easy to overlook this idea of prints, because we're making all of these pictures and you throw them up on Facebook for people to enjoy.
We're just going to pretend he's not there.
Not a butt right in the thing. Can you come over there? And so it's just nice. And it's easy to do. I think one of the barriers is people think, oh, I gotta do 5 steps and then pay $20 and wait 3 weeks. Adorama Pics is wonderful for a couple of reasons. One, they're fast. I ordered these prints from the video file at 11 p.m. By lunchtime the next day, I got the shipping notification, and they'll be here this weekend.
Awesome.
That's awesome. 2, it was ridiculously cheap to order a bunch of 4x6s, a couple 5x7s, and then I went ahead and ordered a couple 8x10s from these 8 megapixel still images, because I want to see what they look like. And it was easy to do. I just uploaded them. I had tweaked them in Lightroom, so I turned off Adorama Pics' auto correction. But if you want to just pass them some kind of unprocessed images, they'll make them look a little bit better with that auto correction turned on. But if you've edited them, I recommend you turn that off. And in a few days, you get a wonderful present on your door, some prints.
Yep.
And we could save you some money on those prints if you order them before the end of May. Use coupon code, what is it?
PXRBT20.
Rolls off the tongue. PXR.
Thankfully, you don't have to remember it because it's been down there the entire time.
That's right.
Right there.
Okay, great. Go make some prints, and you'll thank us, and then it's a nice way to thank our sponsors.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I should add that we have heard from lots of people who have ordered pictures through Adorama Pics since we started a partnership with them, and they're really pleased with them. So, yeah.
Yep.
And as I've said before, I mean, even before we started working with them, I would send all of my wedding clients to them. I don't require people to order prints through me. They can buy them themselves. But I also want them to get really nice, high-quality prints. And Adorama Pics is easy, it's affordable, and they do a really good job. So.
Yep. Cool. So does that lead into our discussion on the future of photography? Because I just was mentioning, I don't want to beat this to death because we've had this discussion before, but I think it's really interesting. We've got this new release from Panasonic. It's the G7, and like the GH4, which we're filming this with right now, it has 4K photo mode. And how that works is you turn that mode on in the GH4, and when you play back a file, well, first off, I should say it prioritizes slightly higher shutter speeds, because usually when you're shooting video, you're at these slower shutter speeds where movement is a little bit blurred, but you don't really see it because it's part of this motion of the video. But when you have 4K video turned on, it raises the shutter speed some, so you'll get crisper effects. And when you play back, you find the image you want, and you push a little button and it creates a still image. Now,
so you just said something that I think might be a little confusing for people. So you said that when you shoot 4K, it increases the shutter speed, but it doesn't actually, it just increases the resolution.
No. When you're we're shooting 4K video in this camera, and when you usually do that, when you're usually shooting video, your shutter speed is twice your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 24 frames a second, your shutter speed is usually 1/50th of a second or 1/48th of a second if you have a camera that can be that precise. But when you turn 4K video mode on, it makes that shutter speed a little bit higher so that your motion is captured more crisply.
Got it. Okay.
And you can shoot at much higher shutter speeds. I was shooting you working this engagement session the other day, and it was quite bright still, but I wanted to shoot pretty wide open and capture a little bit more of that depth of field, or have a shallower depth of field for a little bit more of a nicer look. So I was up at like 1/600th of a second, and the video shows it feels
jittery.
Jumpy. So, but to make a still out of that is totally fine. Now I didn't import this picture, so let me just talk about it. As I said, you replay the back of the camera, and you can push a little button, and it pulls an image out. Downside, it's a JPEG still. But we're talking about the future of photography. It's a pretty big downside, right? But you're basically shooting at 24 frames a second. Think about that burst rate and trying to capture something. Can you talk about, you've poo-pooed this idea.
Yes, I have.
You've been quite negative about it. And I'd say commenters are split. You folks out there in comment land, some of you are like, yeah, this isn't going to work. You got shutter speed issues, you got this issue, you got that issue. And some of you are like, yeah, I think it's going to come along. I'd say you're probably pretty fairly split. Let me get to the gist of what I'm trying to say here, is that I think Panasonic sees things like I do. And they see this as the future. There's new 4K photo modes in the Panasonic. You've got a mode called pre-burst, in which 1 second of video is buffered and captured before and after the shutter button is pushed. This makes me think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where in the future the elevators were smart enough to know what floor you were on before you push the button and would get there and wait, but then they could see too far in the future and they were all scared and huddled in the basement. Anyway, sorry. So I have to imagine that this impacts battery life pretty significantly. But imagine you are tracking an event. Your kid is about to hit that soccer ball, kick that soccer ball. You are tracking and you're like, ooh, here's a good picture, and you snap it. And then you realize you were just a half a second too late. if you had this mode on, before you even push the button, it was recording that segment. And then you pull this file up in the camera or in Lightroom, and you scroll through, find the exact frame you want, and say, that's it, give me that picture. I am not saying this is perfect for photography now and that everybody should just go buy the G7 and start running around doing 4K.
No, you're saying that
But
we will reach a point when that's going to be the case.
Yep.
So, and I say no. Still say no.
Okay.
Even though you think I see the light.
Well, why do you see why were you pretty positive about it the other night when we were looking at these together?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was really impressed with the quality. I like the pictures, which was actually just my first reaction. It's like, you got shots that I wasn't able to get because I was in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that was mostly it.
Okay.
I wish they had been RAWs.
Yeah. You were quite limited in our ability to edit them right now. But, you know, one of the things was I filmed, and then playing back this clip, I could find the spot where maybe her eyes were like just starting to close. And if you'd been shooting, you know, you certainly would shoot several, but I was very easily able to find the one where her expression is perfect, his expression is perfect in this moment that they shared together.
Right, but as a professional photographer, your job should be to anticipate those things, not to like take video and then think about it later and then find it later. And you're gonna miss some shots, but you're gonna get some good ones too in the mix.
Okay.
So one of my arguments against this is, and probably the biggest argument against it from my perspective, is that you're gonna end up with so much data.
It's true.
And two, that video and photo, shooting video and photo are approached differently. You approach them, in terms of composition, there are similarities.
Yep.
Similarities. No, there's similarities. But yeah, I mean, there's motion in video, right? I mean, that's a pretty obvious statement, but at the same time, you are capturing motion. You're not necessarily capturing a moment, which is what you're doing with photography. So I think you're gonna jump into it with a different eye. And I mean, you can still get nice pictures out of it, and surely you can train your eye and then just take video. But I don't know, I just don't feel like I'm gonna be a purist, and I just don't feel like, you know, people should just be taking video and then sorting through all of that and then finding a good picture afterwards. That just doesn't seem like...
Right. And John agrees with you in the chat.
Just about anybody can do that, so...
Right. I think we're going to have software that makes it quite easy. It's going to find those in focus. It's going to find, yeah. There are certainly a lot of things to work out still to get this to a point where it's going to be viable. But we've got another step towards it with this camera. The other thing I want to mention is, so I said 2 modes. It's got one of that pre-burst. The other is simply, as long as you hold down the shutter, it's going to start recording a 4K video file for 29 minutes and 59 seconds long. Which is interesting that it's limited, because the GH4 is not limited at to that time. It's one of the nice things about GH4, it'll just keep on recording forever.
We're back, sorry about that. Where were we?
We were just wrapping up that discussion of 2 modes, 4K modes for photo in the new G7. And I think that we'll see more of this from more cameras in the future. And again, just mention real quick, you know, somebody asking about T6s and where's our 4K? Well, it's not in Canon, but you have certainly some serious other options at really nice price points now.
Yep. All right, and moving on to our final segment, whatever you want to call it.
Were you going to say reader questions?
Well,
I just want a real touchback. I had a couple neat comments in touchback on YouTube from 2 shows ago where we talked about stealing others' work and kind of posting it as your own. And you know what, in the sense of time here, I just want to talk. Craig had a great question, and that is, if you're inspired by a picture you've seen somewhere in a photography magazine or somebody's done, and you, let's say for instance, he saw a beautiful cityscape and he figured out where that photographer was, where they took that picture, and he plans to go there and make a similar picture. Is that copying? Is
No. I mean, that's what people do all the time.
Okay. I agree. I think it's fine. I think that's a great learning experience. And I feel that is different from taking somebody's work and recreating it with all of these extra creative bits like we shared in that Instagram story of the guy, basically recreating these pictures. This one's different because a lot of people could go here to the spot and, there's not other things that you're adding. Now, if you'd done like light painting and wrote, the word Seattle or something, and you did that might be taking it too far, and you should say, inspiration taken from. But if you just figured out where a nice picture was taken from and you go make your own, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you should always be aiming to make unique pictures because I think, I don't know, in the end, you're going to be prouder of that. But
that's true.
There's nothing wrong with emulating until you get there.
Yeah. And we talked about that in the Instagram too.
Inspiration.
Yeah, making it yours makes it more special. Good.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so now we can move into viewer questions or Q&A. Which is, right there. There we go. So first question is from Cooper Spalding. I don't know if you're still watching, Cooper, but I saw you post this question way back in the beginning, and I thought it was pretty relevant. Is there anything specifically that contributes to how much a camera has aliasing and moire?
The design of the sensor and whether or not it has an anti-aliasing filter. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it. I bet if we got a scientist in here to talk about, they could say, but really it's a couple different variables that have to do with the design of the sensor and the aliasing and maybe the pixel pitch. I don't know. Canon tends to do it more than other, and it also has to do with the resolution you're shooting at too, to some degree as well. And even the lenses. Sharper lenses can have a greater impact, and you see that more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, DJ DZ, That Truth, wants to know. Actually, he asked the chat room, but I thought it would be fun for us to answer too. Anyone ever do photos and thought about adding oh wait, no, that's wrong question, just kidding. If you had a camera made into a cake for your birthday, which would it be?
Yeah,
I skipped around.
Okay. If you had a camera made into a cake for your birthday, which would it be? Why are we answering this?
Because it's fun.
Well, it would be an ice cream cake. I love ice cream cakes.
That's not a camera, though. You can't take cameras with ice cream cakes.
Yes, you can.
Try again.
It would be an ice cream cake
I mean,
camera.
you can't take pictures with ice cream cakes.
You can with a regular camera cake. And then it would be a really big, old view camera. That would look cool, and it would be a nice big cake. And it would be easy to make, too, because they're already square, rectangular.
It would be an old camera?
Yeah, one of those old view cameras.
Okay.
What would you have as a birthday camera cake?
I don't know, probably a Rolly. A Rolleiflex, because they're pretty.
Yeah, that's ours somewhere else.
Yeah. Or my Canon 1V, because I love it so much.
It would be cute to make a camera cake. I'm sure somebody's done this. And then you put a bunch of candles where the flash would be. That would be cute. All right. DJ DZ has a real question. And that is, anyone ever, do photographers ever think about adding a logo / watermark of a sponsor to their photo? I think that happens from time to time. I'm trying to think. There are certainly photographers that are sponsored by camera manufacturers. Canon and Nikon sponsor a lot of people. Fuji does as well. So you always have to be a little bit wary when, especially the early reviews of those folks, not DP Review and those places that are mostly unbiased. But you always have to worry a little bit if somebody got their hands on it much earlier. I shouldn't say anything bad about anybody, but you just always got to keep that in the back of your mind, critical thinking of how did they get this camera, and do they want to continue this relationship? Or are they going to say nice things? That doesn't automatically mean they will. I don't know why I took that question there. So, I think very rarely on the photo itself, but almost always you do see, like in the caption,
right?
Or there's some kind of context for
I don't know. I mean, DJ DC that truth.
Can we just call him
You
DJ?
do you.
You do you.
Do if you want to put a sponsor. I mean, I don't know why, but if you want to do it, go for it, right? If you want to do
sure,
that.
yeah. I mean,
I don't think I've ever seen it happen, but
yeah, it's not. No, again, in
just
the
because
caption
people aren't
of the
doing
photo, sometimes we'll see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Kevin Clemens is wondering. He has a question. I already have a 24mm and a 40mm Canon lens.
So you've got the nice little pancakes.
Do you really need the 50?
I'm going to assume you're talking about the new 50. Well, it actually doesn't really matter. Do you need it? No. But it does represent a pretty significant difference from these lenses in that you're shooting at slightly longer focal length, 50 now. I'm going to also assume you have a crop sensor. I don't think it said that. So you're actually about 80. And f1.8 is a wide aperture, gives you a very shallow depth of field. It is a good bit more light. So let me ask you this. If you enjoy using your 40 lots for a couple of reasons, maybe it makes the camera a little bit smaller, it's good quality, and you shoot at that f2.8, then the 50 might be even more enjoyable.
Yeah, not to mention you have, what is it, no, it's not quite a full stop.
F1.8 to f2.8, yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
More light.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
And also, but if you're kind of like, you only really use your 40 when you want to make your camera really small and you don't necessarily love it, then, the 50 doesn't do much for you. But you will see a significant difference in the amount of background blur you can achieve, especially at the closer distances with a 50 f1.8 versus a 40 f2.8. I'll do all of these side-by-sides coming. My 50 should be arriving in a day or two, I hope. I haven't got a shipping notification, but I think that's because they're not supposed to ship it till tomorrow. Let's see.
So GJ Bernard asks, is Creative Commons good for licenses? So, it depends. I mean, Creative Commons is a type of license. It means that you can put your picture out there on the web and license it Creative Commons. And there are different types of Creative Commons licenses, actually. There are attribute, which means that you have to give credit to the photographer. There are non-attributes, which mean that it doesn't require. There are
commercial and non-commercial.
Commercial, non-commercial. There's also you can't modify the picture, so you can use it as long as you can't modify it. There are ones where you can modify it. So it's licensing, but it implies usually that you don't get paid for it. You just kind of put your picture out there, and then you allow people to use it under certain rules and conditions. So it's good for licenses in the way that, you're sort of copyrighting your work, or letting people know that your work is copyrighted. And places like Flickr automatically hand you a creative, so every time you post a picture on Flickr, you can say, okay, so I want to license this Creative Commons or whatever, and so people know what they can do with your picture, if anything at all. But you don't get paid for it. So does that answer the question?
I think so. It is a way to license your image, but for the most part, it's a way to license it in saying, here's what you can do with it if you want to. It doesn't really help you in doing business, so to speak, but it's a nice thing to do. If you've got images that you want to share out and let people do things with, it's worthwhile. But if you're talking about making creating a body of work for somebody, it's not really appropriate usually. That's what I would say. Yep.
Correct.
Donald Lipton wants to know if I've got a video on getting started with astrophotography. At this time, I don't have a video, but I do have a blog post, and it's actually titled, thank you, I think Roy put this in here probably, thank you Roy, Photographing the Perseids Meteor Shower. But it goes into much more detail about actually shooting stars and the 500 rule, about figuring out what your shutter speed is. I'll give you the real quick rundown. It is you want a lens that can fairly wide focal length to capture a lot of the sky, fairly wide aperture so that you can let in a lot of light and keep your ISO down a little bit. If you don't want star trails, if you want the stars to be the dots that we see with our eyes, then you need to keep your shutter speed fast enough that the stars don't get a chance to blur because of the rotation of the Earth.
I think that calls for a video.
I know. It's one I've wanted to make for quite some time. I love doing it. And I recently did the star trail stacking shot that I was really happy with. So.
And there's stinking good stars up here in Vermont.
There are stinking good stars up here in Vermont. It's true. It's true. Okay. Shahid wants to know if it's possible to use some Canon lenses on a Nikon D5500 only if you have an adapter. And all of the adapters I know of, you are going to lose aperture and focus. So it's going to become a manual only lens. And if you're using modern Canon lenses, then you have no way to control aperture. It's always going to shoot wide open unless you do crazy things like when you take it off the Canon camera, you make sure that the depth of field preview button is depressed so it's down to a certain aperture. It's not really worth it. Go get some nice manual Rokinon or Sammy Young lenses if you want to have a cheap, good manual experience. Yeah.
Lenhard Guitar Guy wants to know what photographer inspires you the most. I'll let you go first.
I don't have a good answer to this. I follow a lot of different people on Instagram that I think take beautiful photos. I see beautiful photos all over the place in lots of different ways. There's not a single person that I say, ooh, you know, I want to emulate or is inspiring. Sorry, but that's how I feel. Do you have somebody?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is a wedding photographer, which is kind of boring, but and I've talked about him before, but his name is Jose Villa, and I feel like every time I look at his pictures, I'm just like, I'm a horrible photographer. But yeah, I mean, every time he posts a picture, no matter whether or not he takes it with his iPhone, whether or not he takes it with film, it's always like, you're so good. Like, why are you so good? So, and then
How often do they
just
post?
hate myself.
How often does Jose post?
I don't know.
Oh.
Like once or twice a week,
Once
I think.
or twice a week, yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering
not a lot,
how carefully they
which is
curate.
good for me.
Right, yep.
He curates a lot.
Roger wants to know if we're doing any tutorials on how to use flashes, types,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
We do have some of that planned coming soon.
Very soon.
Yep. Cooper's got a question, what makes live so much different? Do you mean the live show?
He means the live show.
In a good way or bad way? You mean like all the technical hiccups we have that drive us crazy and make me
You
want to
can't
strangle
edit.
myself?
I mean, the technical hiccups happen also when we produce non-live videos. We just cut them out, so you never know that they happen, but they happen. So it's a struggle to get audio right. Audio is really, really difficult to get, clean audio that's consistent.
Well, it's not really, really difficult, but on a budget, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't talk about that anymore because.
Aaron wants to know the best budget macro lens you recommend for an APS-C camera like the 60D. The 60mm EFS lens is great. Tamron's 90mm without vibration compensation or with it is also very good. That's starting to, with vibration compensation, is starting to stretch what might be your definition of budget. But that Canon 60mm is a great place to start. Another great place to start is either extension tubes, and I've searched Toby Macro on YouTube and you'll find this. $70 can give you really good results. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, lens reversals, which is something I only mentioned in that video, but you can get some fantastic results with lens reversal setups. That's where you actually have have a mount that allows you to reverse your lens. And with something like the cheap 50, you can get some fantastic macro shots looking the other way. Osman wants to know, they're looking to upgrade their T5i for both photography and video use, mainly nature genre videos. The 7D Mark II offers, you know, a great video system. You don't have that flip out touchscreen, but it is a fantastic camera and very weather sealed, so you can be out there in all conditions shooting this kind of thing. That represents a pretty significant upgrade. The 70D represents an upgrade. You know, it's not going to be huge different in image quality, but it is going to be different. And remember, you do have that. Actually, this is the reason why you might want to pick the 70D over the 7D Mark II, because you do have digital zoom in the video mode of the 7D, and at 3x it is lossless, full HD quality still. So if you've got a 70 to 200, multiply by your crop factor, multiply it by 3x, and you can have a really high quality. I got a little video that went up recently on the channel that showed that example.
Yep.
Deepak wants to know about the DNX500. Hey, it's on its way. I'll be talking about that more soon. I think, well, here's what I know. It has the same sensor as the NX1. The NX1 has a freaking fantastic sensor in it. I think the NX500 looks like a very nice general walk-around camera. And Erin has a nice note that she loves our channel and Tony and Chelsea's channel for all the suggestions, reviews, openness to the brands, and the recommendations to common questions people would have. Thank you, Erin. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So actually, Roy just very helpfully.
Roy has been freaking awesome tonight. He's
he
as
very
freaking
helpfully
awesome as the NX1 sensor is awesome.
He very helpfully listed your YouTube, the link to a video that you made on macro options.
So I'm gonna.
So you should.
Okay.
Maybe I'll add it to the show notes.
We'll add it to the show notes after the show. Moments after. It'll be there. Let's not do it right while they watch us.
Fine.
We just got this message that said we have great live presence. We don't want to destroy it. Put your heads down. Hold on a second.
Anyone have any thoughts on the Tokina 11 to 16 f2.8? It's pretty nice.
I gotta review that. You people watching this live show, you not watched every one of my videos I've produced? I have a review of that lens, and for wide angle, general purpose, it's fantastic on APS-C only. It's my all-around pick. For Canon users, 10 to 18 is nice, but not for astrophotography, which is when a lot of people like to use these really wide lenses. Which, let me remind you again that my ultra-wide angle lens review will be out in just a few days. And it's packed full of content. Packed. We can wrap this puppy up.
Actually, Buddy Bonus 10 has a question, and he would like to know what we would like to photograph that we have never had the opportunity to photograph. We had a similar kind of question, like way back. It was like, who would you want to photograph that you've never had the opportunity to photograph?
Oh, a person?
Yeah, a person. But we're not going to get into that because we already been there, done that.
That's a neat question. Antarctica. I want to photograph Antarctica.
Yep.
Just for the fact that I go there and photograph Antarctica. Yeah. I think I'm going to speak for both of us, but I think we're feeling quite spoiled in the fact that we get to do this amazing travel with McKay Photography, with Italy. Montana was an amazing experience. Iceland, Greece,
New
Zealand. So the idea of continuing travel to even more of these amazing places is there.
Yeah.
Event-wise, again, maybe because we were just talking about the tour of Italy, the tour de France, I'd be very happy to photograph some of the stages of the Tour de France. That would be a lot of fun. When I was in high school...
Toby's super into professional cycling.
We are moving into that segment of the show where we just start to blab about random things. You might think that sounds like what the whole show was about. But when I was in high school, I like to ride my bike. I call myself a cyclist sometimes. In high school, was very into this, and there was the Tour DuPont, which was one of America's first kind of serious races. Greg LeMond was one of his last major races, and my best friend in high school and we went to watch this in Wilmington, Delaware, and I took my little film camera. I don't even think it wasn't a DSLR, it was just a point and shoot with film, and a little bit older than you thought maybe, and it was fun to watch and fun to photograph. The panning shots, I got some nice panning shots of the riders going by, and thinking about it, this is funny. This is actually maybe the first time that might have been one of the first times where I was really excited about the pictures I was making. Prior to that, I think I was always interested in photography. I carried a camera around on certain things and vacations, but you know, it was mostly just okay, let's take a picture. But here it was, I want to make this picture or that picture. And it was a fun experience. We had a lot of fun. Yeah, and I have a picture of Greg LeMond's butt. I don't know why I went there. In spandex. That doesn't make it better. So. I think it's time.
TJDZ The Truth says, not that tragic events are good, but getting that moment, or the earthquake in Nepal, capturing that. So that actually is a good point, because you would be bringing awareness to this, which is very noble.
This was something I was thinking of when I was mulling over the idea of the future of photography in my head, and thinking about the future of how we consume media. And there was a couple of things that came across, and I thought it was actually in the rundown. Did we skip it? It was about the integrated, got taken out. An integrated prom in, I believe it was Georgia or Alabama, one of the southern states. Sorry to somebody who lives in one and not the other, and I've got confused. Up until just a couple of years ago, the black kids and the white kids did not go to prom together. White kids could go to the black people's prom, but black people could not go to the white kids' prom. This was just a couple of years ago in one of these states.
Pretty unreal.
And it was a New York Times photojournalist who went down there and photographed this and created some disbelief among the rest of the world, and they have managed to integrate it, and oh my gosh, everybody's still okay. Sarcasm. And, you know, so she's got these pictures of interracial kids, or, you know, kids of different races dating and going to prom together and having a good time, as kids do.
Go figure.
And it just thought to me, like, this is the power of photographs. And then also Nepal, the tragedy out of Nepal, and you have the picture of the mother wailing over her child, you know, young child lost in this horrific natural disaster. And I was thinking about the future of photography, and are we going to consume that as a little video clip? You know, and I thought, no, that's too much. The photos are a perfect media for conveying a lot of information, and they are better than video in many cases. So even though I'm saying we may take pictures via video, I think it is going to be, for a huge portion of humanity, we are still going to consume still images as a way to understand, to learn, and to experience things.
Yep. And I definitely, I mean, we've sort of...
I'm proud of it. Put all that together lucidly.
And, well, yeah, I feel like, you know, we've been diving into video a little bit lately, but at the same time, I do feel like photography can be, in some ways, so much more powerful than video. But they're different.
Right.
So.
Yeah, video has power as well, and we have historic examples of that. But, yeah. As DJ DZ The Truth says, photos get that moment. It's true. It's true. And Len Hard Guitar Guy. A photo is more powerful than video. Video can never translate the pure single emotion a photo can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Patrick Kennedy is echoing that. And photos of 9/11. Yeah.
All right.
Southern Georgia. Southern Georgia was the state. He did a quick search, so he thinks that's right. I had it in the rundown. Where did it go?
Thanks,
But
John.
I'm gonna put a link in there because they're good photojournalist type style images, and I think it's interesting to see. And things like that are inspiring to me. Somebody else asked, what style of photography would we like to do?
That's such a broad question.
What is a style of photography you want to try as a challenge? Let's make that the week's question. Would you all take a moment after the chat is over and comment down below. What is the style of photography that you'd like to try? And also, what was the other thing is what event would you like to cover? It might be, those two things might combine into one answer, or they may be two separate answers. And just want to mention that your comments are in the chat, the live chat, are wonderful and fun to read, but take a moment, and we appreciate them going into the comment section because all this live chat stuff goes away at the end. And give a thumbs up. We really appreciate that. And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, let's do that as well. You'll be notified when future videos come out. It's a win-win situation. We can say, look, we got another subscriber, and you can say, look, they made another video.
Yeah. You're getting into your pitching you this.
Look, one of the things that I've learned, and you all need to know this out there if you're trying to do anything, is you got to sell yourself. And I'm sometimes.
This is true.
Sometimes I do it. You do it. I hear you on the phone. I'm the best wedding photographer you people have. You don't hire me? You're crazy.
You're silly. And that totally sounds like me.
It does. You know what, folks? We thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with us. I hope this was useful. If you found it useful, hit that thumbs up button.
Again. If you want to interact...
They can see a little bit of Liam, can't
they? They can, yeah. They can see the tail. Now he's
bored. He's so bored. There you go.
If you want to interact with us outside of this podcast, video, live show, etc., find us on Instagram, on Twitter. So your Twitter username is the same as your Instagram username. Mine's a little bit different because somebody stole mine. No, actually because Twitter, my name is too long, so I can't have the exact same one on Twitter. But yeah, and to stay up to date on more blogs and reviews and announcements and rumors and things like that, go to photorec.tv. And join our newsletter too if you haven't. You're just annoying, Liam.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah,
Thanks
we're
so
wrapping
much
it
for
up.
watching. Goodbye.